technical barriers to prohibit or to mitigate our exporting. Okay, and another non-tariff measure is the rule of origin. The rule of origin, quy tắc xuất xứ. That's very powerful. The rule of origin are always accompanied with the free trade agreement. Okay, and in order to obtain a tax relax or tax benefits from the free trade agreement, you need to prove the origin, your products or origin, and it's not easy to obtain the certificate of origin. So it's kind of the non-tariff measure invented by the governments to protect the domestic industry. Okay, we come back with this. What are the effects of the tariff or the trade barriers on the exchange rate? Okay, so we have the two scenarios here. We have the domestic and the foreign country. I'm sorry for why. Okay, I'm back. So in here we have the two scenarios. First, there's an increase in the trade barriers in the U.S., and in the second scenario we have an increase in the trade barriers in Vietnam. Okay, so what are the consequences? So you can see from the graph here, when the U.S. trade barrier increase, Nguyễn Phương Thảo, please.
Okay, if the U.S. trade barrier increase, so we export less and the supply will shift the curve to the left, and then the exchange rate increase.
Okay, thank you. And when you make such analysis, always remember that we stand from the shoes of Vietnam's economy. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. And in here, when the U.S. trade barriers increase, as your class mentioned, we export less. And when we export less, so the supply of the foreign currency decrease. So it shifts the supply curve to the left. And as a result, it raises the exchange rate. Okay. In the second scenario, so the trade barriers in Vietnam increase. In other words, we impose the trade barrier. We raise the tax rate, or we impose the quota, or we set some technical barriers, and that's affect the flow of the import. Okay, it discourages the importer, and as a result, it shifts the demand to the left. Okay, because there's a reduction in the import. So it shifts the demand curve to the left, and it's reduced the exchange rate. Okay, so that's the way we analyze. The next one, the preference. The taste or the preference. We can translate this like thị hiếu. So we also have two scenarios here. when Vietnamese people prefer foreign goods, in the second scenario, the foreign people prefer Vietnamese goods. Okay. In the first case, when Vietnamese people prefer foreign goods, so we can we import more, right? We import more, so it shifts the demand curve to the right, and it raises the exchange rate. By contrast, when foreign people prefer Vietnamese goods, so we can export more, and it shifts the supply of the foreign currency to the right, and it reduces the exchange rate. Okay. The next one is the income. The Vietnamese people income decrease or the foreign income increase. Okay. But as I mentioned, we in X determinant we have the four cases. Okay. Two times two cases. We focus on the Vietnam. Okay, the Vietnamese people income increase or decrease. But on the slide, I only put two of them. Okay, for the income, when Vietnam people's income decrease, so what are the consequences of this? Linh Dương, please.
When the income of Vietnamese people decrease, the demand for goods will decrease too. The demand curve will shift left, so it makes the exchange rate decrease.
Okay, it's true, but I want to ask you more. Why Vietnamese people, when Vietnamese people income decrease, so we demand less the foreign currency. We demand less the foreign goods.
Because when the income decrease and the price of products, maybe they are expensive with the people, so the demand decrease.
Why it become expensive? So when we make this analysis, we should make an assumption that we hold other things equal. Right? We keep other things equal. So the idea when you make this analysis is that you allow one variable fluctuates. Okay, you only allow one variable fluctuates. You keep other things equal. Okay. And in this, I want to ask you more. Why, when the income change, it affects the import or the export? So Dương, I can't find your name in the list. So
my name is Linh, Dương Thủy Linh.
Oh, Linh. Dương Thủy Linh. Okay, see. When you enter the room, please rename you so it's easy for me to follow. One of you, when you enter the room, please rename you. To write you in the full name in the order, in the Vietnamese order, so it's easy for me to follow you. Okay. Any ideas? Young answer is correct. Okay, but I want to ask you more. The mechanism or the reason behind that. So why we can make such conclusion? Why when Vietnamese people income decrease, and it can reduce the import? Nguyễn Việt Thành, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think when the income of the Vietnamese people decrease, so the consumption of the Vietnamese people will decrease too, and then the import of Vietnam will decrease, and then
okay. The key point here, the consumption decrease. Why?
Because the basic income of Vietnamese people increase, so they have less money, so they have to balance between the save and the buy, so they have to.
Okay. See. The idea, yes. Okay, I agree. So we can see that. Suppose that the household start with they receive a salary or wage Y, right? Suppose that is the wage, the salary they receive, and then they have to pay for some tax. Okay, so we after pay for the tax, so what they still have is the YD. That is the disposable income. The disposable income, right? And from this, they can buy the food or the stuff, and they can spend part of them for shipping. Okay. And in here, we suppose that for this, they when the income decrease, so the disposable income also decrease. And suppose that we keep the share of the consumption between the foreign goods and the domestic goods are same. Okay, we fix that share. So when there's a decrease in the income, it's reduce the disposable income, and then it's reduce the amount of the goods we can buy for, the amount of the money we can spend to buy the foreign goods, and as a result, it's reduce the import. Okay, that's the mechanism. I just want to ask you more about that. And when you make an analysis, the idea here, we only allow one determinant vary, or we only change one determinant, and we keep other things equal. Okay, in the second scenario, the foreign income increase. So in here is affect the export, right? When the foreign income increase, so they buy more our products, so we export more, and it shift the supply curve to the right. Okay, and as a result, it reduce the exchange rate. That is for the income determinant. Okay, the last one, the productivity. The productivity. Okay, for the first scenario, when our productivity increase, how it affect the exchange rate? Nguyễn Nhung, please.
Well, when the productivity increase, so we can produce more. So the supply will increase, and the supply curve will shift to the right, while the demand curve stable. So the exchange rate will decrease.
You mean that when our productivity increase, so we can produce more?
Yeah.
And because we produce more, so we export more? Like we only think about that when when a country produce, they part of that they consume domestically, okay, and the rest of the products, so they export to the foreign market, right? So in here you explain when our productivity increase, so we produce more, and because we produce more, so we export more. That's one mechanism. What other mechanism we can use to explain? This one mechanism, okay? But think about whether we have another mechanism to explain why an increase in productivity raise our export.
I think when the productivity increase, so we can lower the price. I mean,
Okay.
the cost.
Okay. Yes, sure. Okay, that's another mechanism. An increase in productivity also means there's a decrease in the cost or the price. When we improve our productivity, so we can lower the cost or the price of products. Okay, and when the price of the Vietnamese products become relatively cheaper, so we can export more. Okay, another way to explain that. Thank you. So that's the way to explain. In this case, we export more, so it shifts the supply curve to the right, okay, and it's reduced the exchange rate. In the second scenario, the Vietnamese productivity decrease. Okay, we export less because our products become relatively expensive, and it shifts the supply curve to the left, and it raises the exchange rate. Okay, so that's for the long-run determinant. Okay. Next, we move to the short run. The determinant in the short run, we focus on the interest rate and the expectation. The interest rate and expectation. And in the short run, we use a supply and the demand of the financial asset. And the financial asset. In the long run, we use the supply and the demand of the foreign currency to analyze. But in the short run, we move to, or we use a new model, supply and the demand of the financial assets. Okay, first for the supply of the financial asset. Supply of financial assets is record in domestic currency, and the total of the total supply of the financial assets is constant. It's just some number, and it's independent of exchange rate. It's independent of exchange rate. Okay. So it's when we use a two-dimensional graph, and with the exchange rate on the vertical axis. Okay. So the supply of the financial assets is a vertical line. For the demand of the financial assets, it captures the total financial assets denominated in the USD that demand by the Vietnamese. And the demand of the financial assets depend on the expected return. That is the difference between the expected exchange rate and the current exchange rate. for holding this asset. Okay. So let's wrap up. The supply of the financial access is just some number. It's constant. It's independent of the exchange rate. Okay, so it's just a vertical line. For the demand of the financial access, it captures the total asset, total financial access, denominated in USD. Okay. And that demand by the foreign people, Vietnamese people. And when we have this notation, so we can have here, we apply to analyze here. First, let's look at on a graph. In here, we analyze the how the interest rate affect the exchange rate in the short run. So we have the two types of exchange rate, right? Two types of the interest rate, right? The domestic interest rate and the foreign interest rate. In the next slide, the foreign. Okay, let's start with this. First, for the supply and the demand of the financial assets. The supply is the vertical line. You see, as you see here, it's the vertical line. Why? Because it's some number. It's a constant. It's constant and it's independent of the exchange rate. So on the graph is drawn by a vertical line here. For the demand curve, okay, in here is the demand of the foreign access. The demand of the foreign access. In other words, the access denominated in the foreign currency, USD, for example, and this asset demand that is demanded by the Vietnamese people. Okay. First, we assume that the Vietnamese interest rate increase. The Vietnamese or the interest rate in Vietnam increase. Sorry, focus on this. We assume decrease first. So we go from this. First, the interest rate in Vietnam decrease. For example, it's decreased from 10% to 6% now. So how it affect the exchange rate? Okay. Please explain this. Please explain. Who can explain the mechanism? When the domestic interest rate decrease, how it affect the exchange rate? By using the demand and the supply of the financial asset. Can Lin please?
I think if interest rates of Vietnam decrease, so Vietnam currency price will decrease too. Because when interest rates of Vietnam decrease, so it means that many people give the money, receive money into the bank. So they don't need the money to invest. So I think it means Vietnam currency price will drop.
Nguyễn Phương Thảo, please.
I think when the domestic interest rate decrease, so Vietnamese people tend to buy more foreign assets to keep the Vietnamese the VND value to unstable, and then the demand of foreign assets is increased, and then the exchange rate is increased.
Okay. In here we assume that the people are the profit seeker. Okay. The people always invest in into the asset that have a higher return, right? And when the domestic interest rate decrease, so Vietnamese people tend to hold more foreign asset because that have a higher return relatively, right? Am I right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So when the Vietnamese people demand to hold more foreign assets or the asset denominated in the foreign currency, so it shifts the demand curve to the right, okay, and it raise the exchange rate, okay. That's the way to analyze. And in here, when you make such an analysis, so please focus on the supply and the demand of the financial access, because that is the framework we use to analyze the determinant of the exchange rate in the short run. Okay. Okay. The next scenario. So we analyze in opposite way, right? When the Vietnamese interest rate increase. Okay. So the Vietnamese people tend to hold more access denoted in the Vietnamese dong. In other words, they demand less the foreign access or the asset denoted in the foreign currency. So it shifts the demand curve to the left and it's reduced the exchange rate. Okay, for the foreign interest rate. For the foreign interest rate, so we apply the same logics. When the interest rate of the USD increase, so the Vietnamese people demand more on the foreign access, but the asset denominated in the USD, okay? So it shifts the demand curve to the right, okay? It's raise the interest rate. And the last one, when the interest rate of the USD decrease, so Vietnamese people prefer less the foreign access, and it shifts the demand curve to the left. It's reduced the exchange rate. Okay, and that's all for this. So we already know about the exchange rate regime, the role of the central bank, and the determinant of the exchange rate in the short run and in the long run. Okay. So I will send this slide to you after class. Okay, and we apply this framework to answer the chapter 8 and chapter 11 at the exercise I sent you. And I asked monitor to arrange a group to help me to translate those questions into English, and we can use that for our class and also for the next class. Okay, for your brother class. And monitor how many your friend, how many of you register to do the tax?
You mean translate the?
Yes. How many students register?
There are 9 students now.
Okay, you can have group of 9, and we stop at 9. Okay, we fix at 9, and please return the tax by weekend, by the end of this weekend. Okay, it's okay for us.
Okay, we already almost done it.
Okay. Maybe you can quickly translate it, but then please recheck it carefully. Recheck because the concept, like in the fixed exchange rate, so we have the terms for the chain to reflect the chain of the exchange rate, like the evaluation, revaluation, appreciation or depreciation, or undervalue and overvalue. So if we do not carefully consider about that, so we may make a mistake when we translate into the English. Okay, so please after you have a first draft, and then you send back to the host member and recheck that. Okay, to make sure the translation is clean enough.
Okay.
Okay. So you have any question? You want to say something?
Will there be a more chance to do this kind of task to get some points?
Okay. Yeah, I know that you want to get the bonus from this, but actually at this time, I don't have much that tax. But on the class, so during the class, I try to raise at most a question, and you can get the bonus from answer this question. Okay. As you can see during the class, we have a lot of the question, and when you answer the question, so I mark like 1 point, and you can inform the information to the monitor, and monitor you help me to record what you participate in the class. Okay, and we use that information to keep the bonus points. It's okay. So we still have the PPP and IRP. PPP stands for Purchasing Power Parity, and IRP stands for Interest Rate Parity. Ngang giá sức mua and ngang giá lãi suất. That's the main contents of the chapter 4 and chapter 5. Okay, we now move to the chapter 4 for the purchasing power parity. Okay, when you search for the exchange rate, okay, or when you access into the commercial bank, you can see the exchange rate quoted by that commercial bank on their website. And we see, like for the exchange rate quoted by Vietcombank, for the exchange rate between the USD and VND, it, for a long term, is about 23,300. And if you noticed yesterday, the State Bank of Vietnam reduced the exchange rate. Okay, that's for the first time for quite a long time. This is the first time after a long time the State Bank of Vietnam evaluate our currency. Evaluate. It raised our value. Okay, that's usually we observe the State Bank of Vietnam manage the exchange rate. Usually the State Bank of Vietnam devaluate the currency, devaluates our Vietnamese dong. But yesterday, the State Bank of Vietnam revaluate. Okay, that's quite strong. And for the exchange rate quoted by the commercial bank for the USD, the exchange rate is around now is 22, about 2290 some 900 something. Okay, but for other exchange rate, for other pair of the currency, like for the exchange rate of the pound against VND, the Europe against VND is around 30. But for the ZARN, the ZARN is a hard currency. It's also the liquidity currency. It does have a high liquid, but the exchange rate of GPY, the ZARN against Vietnam, just 200. Okay, just around 200. It's quite low compared to that USD or Europe or the British pound, right? And so we may concern that whether this number come from. Okay, why the exchange rate of the USD against VND is more than 20? Why the ZARN against VND just around 200? Why they are quite different? Whether this figure come from? Okay, and another concern is why exchange rate tends to move rapidly or sharply in the short run, and they tend to move slowly in the long run. Okay, what are the determinants about that? So we, in this chapter, we answer this question. Okay, and in the first question, whether this number, the figure 23 or 22,000 come from. Okay, so that's the main content in this chapter. In the first one, we study the concept of the purchasing power and purchasing power parity. What is the purchasing power? Purchasing power is the financial ability to purchase goods or services. So with the 10,000 Vietnamese dong, you can buy 3 cups of tea, right? You can also buy 3 pencils. So it captures the financial ability to purchase goods or services. There are 2 types of purchasing power: the domestic purchasing power and the international purchasing power. In other words, we have the internal purchasing power and external purchasing power. Purchasing power is the quantity of goods bought by 1 unit of currency. For the domestic purchasing power is the quantity of goods or services bought by using 1 unit of domestic currency in the domestic market. That is the domestic purchasing power. And if you still remember, it corresponds to the QD. If you remember the formula when we compute the percentage, when we study the exchange rate, in the real exchange rate, okay, we have the undervalue and overvalue, right? And we have the formula to compute the percentage of undervaluation and overvaluation. And we have the QD and the QR. And we compute the VR, right? So the domestic purchasing power is the quantity of goods bought by using 1 unit of domestic currency in the domestic market. And that corresponds to the QD, right? QD. The external purchasing power is the quantity of goods or services bought by using 1 unit of domestic currency in the foreign markets. Okay, so to buy the goods in the foreign markets, you first need to convert to the foreign currency, and then you buy the goods at the foreign market. Okay, and that corresponds to the QF, right? We have the QD for the domestics and QF for the foreign, and that's labeled the internal or the external purchasing power. And what are the determinants of the domestic purchasing power? The domestic purchasing power depends on the domestic inflation. Meanwhile, the internal purchasing power depends on the exchange rate and the foreign inflation. So, for the domestic purchasing power is depend on the domestic inflation alone, and for the international purchasing power, so it depends on the 2 factors. The first one is the exchange rate. The second one is the foreign inflation. And after we derive the purchasing power in the domestic and in the foreign, okay, so we come to the concept of the purchasing power parity. Purchasing power parity is the rate of exchange, or is the exchange rate. So if someone asks you what is the purchasing power parity, so first, the purchasing power parity is an exchange rate, okay? But this exchange rate satisfies some condition. So what is the condition? So if the exchange rate between the two currency agrees, the quantity of goods bought in each market are the same when a unit of domestic currency is converted to the foreign currency and vice versa. And so we have the formula here, E with subscript P, EP equal to the domestic price, of the goods bundle divided by the P star is the price of standard buckets in the foreign currency. Okay, from the definition, you can derive this. Okay, so first you have the domestic purchasing power. You have the concept of the QD, right? QD is the amount of goods bought by using 1 unit of domestic currency in the domestic market. Okay, so in the domestic markets, 1 unit of products, so I denote it as 1S equal to P, right? P VND, right? VND. So it means that 1 VND, with 1 VND, you can buy 1 over P units of products. Am I right? Am I right? And it corresponds to QD. QD is equal to 1 P units of products, okay? For the QF, so with 1 unit of VND, how much products we can buy in the foreign market? So for 1 unit of VND, you convert into USD, right? You can hold 1 divided by E USD, right? And in the foreign markets, 1S equal to P star USD, right? P star is the price of 1 unit in the foreign market. And then with 1 USD, you can buy 1 over P star 8, okay? And with 1 VND, we have is equal to 1 over E, right? And put them together, so we can buy this units of products, right? Then that corresponds to the QF. Okay, the purchasing power parity implies that the amount of goods you can buy in the domestic market and in the foreign market are same. So we have the QD equal to the QF. Okay, and it's equal to this, right? 1 over P equal to this. Okay, and rearrange this and cancel out the units of good. So we have E here. equal to the P divided by P star. Okay, and we denote this level is EP, and that's the way to derive the purchasing power parity. And from the definition, the purchasing power parity, what is the purchasing power parity? First is the exchange rate, okay? Purchasing power parity is an exchange rate, okay? But this exchange rate at this level, at this level of exchange rate, the quantity of goods bought in both markets are same when using one unit of currency, okay? So whether the figure like the exchange rate of USD against VND come from, okay? So first we need to define the standard basket of goods, standard baskets of products in the domestics and in the foreign country, okay? So we decide what kind of goods should be included in the standard basket, okay? We assign the weight of them, okay? First, you need to decide what kind of goods included in the standard, then the weight of this good and the price of that good, okay? And we compute for the domestic economy and for the foreign country, and we come to the price of the whole bundle, okay? The price of the whole bundle in the Vietnamese and the price of the bundle in the USD, and then we apply here EP equal to the price in the domestic currency divided by the price in the foreign currency, and that's the way we derive the purchasing power parity. And when the commercial bank, also the central bank, they set the exchange rate, they refer, okay, they make a reference to the purchasing power parity. The real, I mean the actual, in reality, when the commercial bank, they set the exchange rate, they should refer to the purchasing power parity, okay? And at the point in time, you may observe the exchange rate quoted by the commercial bank that fluctuate around the purchasing power parity, but that it just capture the short run in the, okay. In the long run, they should converge to each other, okay? In the short run, the commercial bank can set the exchange rate that are deviating from the purchasing power parity, but in the long run, the exchange rate set by a commercial bank fluctuate around the purchasing power parity, and it converts to the purchasing power parity. Okay, in the next, I introduce the law of the one price. The law of one price. Quy luật một giá. Here is the key formula of the law of one price. The price of its products. The I here capture the products or the commodity I's. So Pi equal to E multiply Pi star. Okay. The law of one price shows us the price of goods, of X good, the price of X commodity are equal when denominated in the same currency. In other words, the price of X commodity, in here the commodity I, so we have the different types of commodity, so I can vary, okay? The price of X commodity are equal when expressed in the same currency, okay? So the idea here, you pick the information about the price of the commodity I in the domestic country, and you also pick the information of the commodity I in here, the same commodity in the foreign currency, in the foreign country, okay, and you have the information about the exchange rate between this pair of the currency, okay, and then we compute. And the law of one price shows us the price of X commodity are equal when expressed in the same currency. When we search such information, and you have these three information, like you can do for the iPhone and MacBooks. And now we have the Apple Store in Vietnam, right? So you can search the price of the iPhone 12, for example, in the Vietnamese store and in the US store. And you search the information of the exchange rate quoted by Vietcombank, for example, and you make the calculation, and you check whether this equal or not. Okay. At a point in time, you may see that when you make such calculation, you may see three scenarios. Okay. In the first one, P is greater than EP star. The second one, P is less than EP star. Okay. And the third one, P equal to EP star. If we have the third case, so that is the purchasing power parity, or the law of one price hold, right? The law of one price hold. But in most of the case, when you make such calculation, we observe this. We have the first two cases. Okay. Now we're gonna see. We're gonna make analysis to show that we observe the first two cases is just temporary. It's just temporary. In the long run, when the market force came into effect, it affects the macroeconomic variable, and then finally we have, in the long run, the law of one price hold. Okay, let's focus on the first in the case one. In the case one, in the case one, when we have P is greater than EP star, in other words, the price in the domestic economy is greater than that's the foreign. Okay, and both denoted in the same currency. And when this happens, is create the arbitrage opportunities. What is arbitrage of the opportunity here? And when the arbitrator make a transaction, what are the consequences of the economy? Please think about that. We have the two questions here. When we observe P is greater than EP star, what is the arbitrage opportunity here? And what are the steps to run to conduct this arbitrage opportunity? Young Lin, please.
Can I answer the first question?
Yes.
It is when the arbitrage opportunities mean that they could make profit when they change the money. Means that when the P is higher than the E plus P star, they have to the domestic currency will have when they change the domestic currency to the foreign currency, they will make profit.
Okay. In here is the price of the good. So the arbitrage opportunity here is we use the Vietnamese dong, we convert into the USD, and we buy the products, or in other words, we import the goods from the foreign country, right? And then we sell the goods, the imported goods, into the domestic country, and we obtain the profits, and that's the arbitrage opportunity here. The idea is we buy the goods in the low price at the low price, and we sell the goods at the higher price, and we obtain the profits. Okay, that's the idea of the arbitrage business, arbitrage opportunity. Okay, let's see. Let's move to the second question. So when the arbitrator come into place, so what are the consequences? What are the consequences on the economy? In the step one, convert the VND to USD, right? In the step two, using the USD to buy products, to buy the goods in the foreign, right? And in the step three, sell the goods, the imported good, at the domestic market. Okay, that are the process. The other process for the arbitrator. Now we analyze when the arbitrator take into place. So when the arbitrator actually make this opportunity, they run this opportunity, run this business. So how it affect the macroeconomics? Who can answer this? Can you hear, please?
When they into the in step one, the demand of the foreign currency will increase, and then the exchange rate will increase. And in the step two, when using USD to buy goods in foreign countries, so I don't know. I mean, like in the
in the step one, when we convert to the USD, the demand in the USD increase, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And it
And
shift the demand curve.
Demand curve to the right.
And is headed down.
The exchange rate
decrease or increase?
increase.
Okay, thank you. In the step two?
In the step two, the
when we buy the foreign goods, what happened? When? Can you continue?
No.
Okay, thank you. Nguyễn Phương Thảo, please.
I think at step two, when using USD to buy goods in foreign countries, so the demand for foreign goods will increase, and that's the result will P star will increase.
Okay, the demand for the foreign good
increase.
Okay, right. Okay, thank you. And as a result, it shift the demand curve to the right.
Yeah.
Okay, and then is
P star increase.
Right, the P star increase. Okay. Step three.
So when we sell the imported at drumstick market, the supply of goods in the drumstick market will increase.
Supply of goods increase.
Yeah, and shift the curve to the right, and then the P decrease.
The P, the price in the domestic decrease.
Decrease.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And
here we have to right is E, the exchange rate, and the P star increase. We have the P, the price of drumstick falls, so it will increase. The result here is increase.
Okay, so when the arbitrator comes into place, you can see they do in 3 steps, right? And finally, we have in the left-hand side, the P decrease. In the right-hand side, both exchange rate and the P star increase, right?
Yeah.
And this arbitrage business continue to happen until we have the equal sign, until we have the P equals to EP star. Okay, and finally we have the law of one price holds. Okay, and that's the mechanism we use to analyze here. The idea is that when you pick the information, when you search information about the P star and E, and we make a simple calculation, and we can see that we have seen the P is greater or less than EP star, and this creates the arbitrage opportunity. Okay, and when the arbitrator comes into place, and they make the business, and the consequence or the result of that business it affect the macroeconomics. Okay, we focus on the P star and E, and we can see that it can change. Okay, and in here, I assume that we are in the floating regime. Okay, if we connect this part with the knowledge we study in the chapter 3, if we consider whether we have the fixed exchange rate regime or we have the floating exchange rate regime, in here I suppose that we have the floating exchange rate regime, okay, and in this regime, we allow the exchange rate fluctuate. Okay, we allow the exchange rate fluctuate. Mm-hmm. So E increase here, but we can make an analysis in the case of the fixed exchange rate regime. Okay, in the fixed exchange rate regime, the central bank make a commitment. They maintain or they keep the exchange rate at the some level with a narrow band, for example. And in the step one, under the fixed exchange rate regime, okay, when we convert from VND to the USD, we apply the same demand USD increase, okay, and it shift the demand curve to the right, okay, and it lead to an increase in the exchange rate, right? That is we have, but because we have the fixed exchange rate under the fixed exchange rate regime, the central bank have to intervene the market, right? The central bank have to intervene the markets. In this case, what should the central bank do? What should the central bank do in this case? To fix the exchange rate, or to stabilize the exchange rate. Any answer?
Sell USD.
They have to sell the USD, right? And shift the demand curve to the right. Shift to the demand curve. No, should shift the supply curve to the right. Okay. And finally, we have the exchange rate come back or rise back on be back to the initial level, because E increase after this part, and when the central bank sell the USD, it shift the supply curve to the right, so it reduce the exchange rate, and exchange rate move back to the initial level. Okay, so in the fixed exchange rate, there's no change in the exchange rate. After this intervention, we have no change in the exchange rate. And for the step 2 and step 3, we do the same. Okay, same. It is similar to the floating exchange rate regime. And we can see that. When the arbitrator, they make the transaction under the exchange rate, fixed exchange rate regime, only the price of the commodity chain, right? Only the price of the commodity chain. But under the floating exchange rate regime, the price of commodity and the exchange rate chain, right? And usually the speed of the chain in the exchange rate is higher or is faster than the chain in the commodity price. So under the floating exchange rate regime, the main factors that have to achieve the law of one price is the change or the movement in the exchange rate. Okay, because the movement in the exchange rate is higher and it's faster, so it contribute most to achieve the law of one price. Okay, but under the fixed exchange rate regime, because exchange rate is fixed, so we only allow, so the price of commodity move, and usually the price of commodity move, the movement of the price commodity is lower. Okay, it's lower and is slower than the movement in the exchange rate. Okay, so we have the law of one price under the floating regime can be achieved faster and more easier. Okay, that is for the case 1. And for the case 2, you can do it by yourself. In the case 2, we suppose that the P is less than EP star, okay? And then we have the 2 scenarios under the floating exchange rate regime and under the fixed exchange rate regime, okay? And you do it by yourself, okay? And we do in an opposite way, apply the same logics. We analyze how, and the idea here is that if we have the case like to detect whether you do right or wrong, okay? So the idea here, the case 2, when P is less than EP star, okay, the hint is that when you make an analysis, okay, and after 3 steps, if you observe that the P, okay, the P increase, and E, the exchange rate and the P star decrease, okay, and you go to the right way, okay, and if you don't see that, okay, you may make some problem. So you may make the mistake when you do the analysis, okay. On the slide, I put the content I have introduced, I have explained to you so far, okay? The mechanism to maintain the law of one price. So we have the two scenario when P is greater or less than the EP star, and in each scenario we analyze under the fixed exchange rate or floating exchange rate, and you make a conclusion about that. So under the fixed exchange rate, so the main factors to achieve the law of one price is the movement of the commodity price. Meanwhile, under the floating exchange rate, the main factor is the movement of the exchange rate. Okay, please have a look to make sure that you understand the mechanism behind that. Okay. Okay, now we move to the content of the purchasing power parity. The purchasing power parity, we make 5 assumptions for the purchasing power parity. We make 5 assumptions here. The first one, there is no international shipping costs, there's no trade barriers, no risks, the goods are exactly identical, and the market is perfectly competitive. The perfectly competitive market or perfect competition means that the buyer, both buyer and the seller are the price taker. The price taker. The price taker mean they are small. They cannot influence. They cannot affect the price. Okay, so that's the price taker, and that's the main feature of the perfect competition. Cạnh tranh hoàn hảo. You may know in the microeconomics, right? And we make these 5 assumptions, okay? No shipping costs, no trade barriers, have no risk in the international trade. The market is perfectly competitive, and the goods are exactly identical. And then we have the content of the PPP. The content of the PPP. The idea here is rely on it derive on the law of one price. Okay. In the law of one price, the price of goods are equal when denominated or when expressed in the same currency. Okay. In the law of one price, we only have. Let me still do that. Okay. In the law of one price, at the whiteboard have so far, we only have the price of X commodity. P star I here. This is the law of one price. So we have this law for each commodity. Okay, we have the price of the commodity I in the home country and the price of the commodity I in the foreign country. Okay, but when we have the PPP, when we derive the PPP, we apply for the bundle of goods. Okay, the difference is the law of one price is applied for only one goods or apply for X good. Okay, but the PPP apply for the standard bundle of goods or of products. Okay, and the idea is same. The difference just the price level here. The PPP star for the one price is the PPP star of X commodity, but in the PPP it apply for the standard bundle of goods. So this is the price level of the goods bundle. Okay, and we have for the PPP we have the EP star equal to P. Okay, and we analyze the mechanism to obtain this because we may observe that the EP star is greater or less than P. Okay, and we apply the same mechanism, the arbitrage trading. We apply the same. In the law of one price, we take the arbitrage business for only one commodity, but in here we have the whole bundle. We have a lot of goods in the bundle, so we have the arbitration. The steps are same. The difference just whether we trade for one goods or the bundle of goods. And in here, it linked to the concept of the real exchange rate. If we remember the real exchange rate, the formula to compute the real exchange rate, in this part is with a small subscript r. This is the real exchange rate. The formula is ER equal to E multiplied P star divided by P. And because the PPP, okay, we have the EP star equal to P. In other words, we have the ER equal to 1. The ER here is the real exchange rate, the bilateral real exchange rate. And we have extract from ER, or we have extract from this part, so they are same. So we use the arbitrage trading to analyze when the PPP doesn't hold, the arbitrage opportunity occurs, and if the arbitrator comes into place, so is make the transaction, and then it affects the variable, macroeconomic variable, and the arbitrage opportunity occurs until the two sides of this equation of this are equal. Okay, so in that case, the arbitrage opportunity disappear when the PPP holds. Okay, and so the conclusion we can withdraw here is the market exchange rate should reflect the purchasing power parity between two countries, two currency. So in other words, the PPP is the basic of the exchange rate formation on the foreign exchange market. Okay, from the first slide, when we studied this chapter, I mentioned that whether when we search the exchange rate information on the commercial bank website, and we see that the figure, the exchange rate value, whether they are quite different. Like for the case of the USD is about 23,000. For the case of the WN is only 200. So we consider whether this figure comes from. Okay, and the answer here is come from the purchasing power parity. The commercial rate in the market that link to the purchasing power parity, and at this point in time, when we compute them, it may deviate. Okay, the commercial rate is deviate from the purchasing power parity, but then in the that's only reflect in the short run. Okay, in the long run, in the long run, it's converse. Okay, the commercial rate convert to the purchasing power parity, and that's the idea of the purchasing power parity. For the form of the PPP, we have three forms of the PPP. We have the absolute form, relative form, and the expected form. For the absolute form, we have this part, EP. Okay, the absolute form is just simple. EP equal to P divided by P star. Okay, and this formula can explain the formation of exchange rate in a simple way. And when we look at the this, we can predict the movement of exchange rate by observing the change in the price between the two countries. Okay, if we observe that the inflation, okay, the inflation in the domestic currency, when we observe the price in the two countries, if they observe the movement, okay, so we can make a guess about the movement of the exchange rate. For the inflation, let me use the another form. The comparative form, but this absolute form has some weakness. The main drawback is it's hard to find the common standard basket goods between two countries. Why? Because the taste, okay, the preference in each country are different. The people tend to consume, like in the case of Vietnam, we eat the rice for meal, right? But in the Europe or in the US, they prefer to eat bread. So that is just example to demonstrate that the taste or the preference of the consumption are quite different across country. And another one is that the production ability the production capability across country are quite different, and some products we can trade. So like we can enjoy by importing that good, but there are some goods that are non-tradable, so we cannot enjoy that good because that good just produced and consumed domestically. They cannot trade across country. So that's why the main drawbacks of the absolute form is very, very difficult to find a common the standard basket of goods. And the way to assign the width and quality of each good are quite different across country. And again, because of the taste. And also there are factors, okay, the factor like a tax, insurance expense, and shipping costs. In the PPP, we assume we make the 5 assumption. We make the 5 assumption. when this assumption holds, so we have the PPP, but in reality, we have the positive tariff, right? We have the positive tax rate, we have the risks when we trade across country. We have the cross-border trade, and we also have the shipping cost. It's very, very expensive, right? So that's the factors, which are the so-called F factors, that make the exchange rate deviate from the purchasing power parity. In the second form, in the dynamic form, we have the dynamic form in 1 year, less than 1 year, and greater than 1 year. Okay, for the dynamic form for 1 year, so let's speak on that. This the dynamic form for 1 year, and we have the absolute form and we have the relative form. The absolute form, so we connect the exchange rate, the purchasing power in 2 periods. Okay, and we have the relation, they capture the relationship between E1 and E0 through the inflation in both countries, or the CPI in both countries. And for the relative form, we have this. Okay, in the next meeting, I will show you how to derive this. And for the study, we stop now. But now, you have one task. You have to fill in a survey. Okay, I send you the survey into the box. Please answer in the survey. It's required by our school. Okay, do you see the survey? I put in the box, in the chat box. And please finish the survey. Okay, it's required by the banking academy. And please do that. Have you finished?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Once you finish, we can leave now. We can stop now.
Bye, teacher.
Okay. Thank you. See you on next Monday. So in the next Monday, we continue to study the PPP. We have the exercise part. Okay. And on Monday, we have to discuss about when we have the second midterm exam. I want to spend the time for studying, and we may have the we use another time for examination, maybe on the evening, because right, it's okay. We have discussed about that in the next Monday. Okay. Okay, thank you so much. See you.
Okay, see you.
Excuse me, teacher.
Yes.
I have a question. What about the final exam?
The final exam, we still consider about that. The final exam, maybe we have the multiple choice question, as I mentioned so far, or we have gọi là hình thức thi tự luận ấy. Nếu là cái Q&A nhá, thì sẽ thi trên nó có hai nền tảng để thi. Nền tảng cái iTest của Học viện Ngân hàng sử dụng, hoặc là cái Google Classroom như mà chúng ta đã sử dụng ấy. Thì đó là nếu thi Q&A. Thế còn cái loại hình thứ hai ấy, đó là thi tự luận. Thì bởi vì hiện nay đang khống chế cái tỷ lệ để thi trắc nghiệm, cứ mỗi không phải toàn bộ các môn đều có thể thi trắc nghiệm được hết, nên là nó sẽ có lựa chọn là một số môn sẽ thi trắc nghiệm, số môn sẽ thi tự luận. Thì trong trường hợp mà chúng ta thi tự luận nhé, thì cái đề nó cũng giống như năm ngoái hay là mọi năm từ trước đến nay ấy, thì cái đề của nó sẽ gồm đó là các bạn sẽ có các câu hỏi trắc nghiệm, có khoảng 16 câu hỏi trắc nghiệm. Trắc nghiệm thì nó là giống như câu hỏi của bài kiểm tra của chúng ta đã làm ấy, là trắc nghiệm 4 phương án và lựa chọn đáp án đúng nhất. Và những câu hỏi trắc nghiệm thế này thì nó sẽ không cần phải tính toán, là bạn sẽ justify ngay là cái đó tăng hay giảm, bạn không cần phải đặt bút tính toán ấy. Thế còn cái loại thứ hai đó là bài tập trắc nghiệm. Cái bài tập trắc nghiệm thì nó sẽ có 4 câu. Có 4 câu, cứ mỗi một câu 0,75 điểm. Là bạn cần phải tính toán. Bạn tính toán xong thì bạn sẽ lựa chọn trong một trong 4 cái đáp án đó là đáp án nó chính xác. Thì bạn cũng chỉ cần là bạn lựa chọn đáp án thôi. Mà nhưng mà để ra đáp án đó thì bạn cần phải tính toán. Thì cũng giống như cái dạng mà chúng ta đã làm ở trong cái bài tập ấy. Có một số câu bạn sẽ trả lời ngay lập tức, đó là lý thuyết thuần túy, đúng không? Có một số câu thì nó trả lời đó là bạn cần phải tính toán một chút, bạn cần phải áp dụng công thức thì nó mới ra được kết quả là gì. Thì đó là bài tập trắc nghiệm. Thì mỗi một câu như thế là 0,75 điểm. Thế còn chúng ta có hình thức thi tự luận thì có một bài tập lớn. Thì cái dạng bài tập đó nó giống như cái mà chúng ta đã luyện tập. Ví dụ như bài tập cung cầu này, đúng không? Trong mỗi một chương thì nó sẽ có cái dạng bài tập, chính là cái file bài tập mà thầy gửi cho các bạn ấy. Các cái dạng bài tập đó thì những cái dạng nào có khả năng thi thì nó là xuất hiện ở đây hết rồi. Là bài tập về cung cầu chẳng hạn, hoặc trong cái phần bài tập của PPP có này, bài tập của IRP có này. Đấy, thì trong cái các bạn có thể nhìn qua cái dạng bài tập ở trong các problem set mà thầy gửi ấy, thì nó là hình thức thi tự luận là như thế. Nếu mà thi tự luận thì nó sẽ 90 phút, còn thi trắc nghiệm thì nó là 60 phút. Thì hiện nay Bộ Học Ngân hàng nó mới có cái quy chế để hướng dẫn thi online thôi. Thế còn các bộ môn thì cũng có đề xuất lên là hình thức thi là như thế nào rồi. Giống lần trước thì thầy đề xuất là thi online chẳng hạn, thi online, nhưng mà trong cái quy chế mới thì nó lại khống chế cái tỷ lệ một số, nói chung là không phải tất cả các toàn môn đều có thể thi được thi trắc nghiệm, nên là cuối cùng là phải fit lại là cái nào thi trắc nghiệm, cái nào thi tự luận. Nhưng mà chúng ta yên tâm một cái điều đó là gì, ít nhất là trong cái phần trắc nghiệm 16 câu trong đề giả sử thi tự luận ấy, thì các bạn có 16 câu cái dạng này chúng ta đã làm quen này. Thứ hai đó là bài tập trắc nghiệm thì chúng ta cũng đã giới thiệu ở trong các cái problem set và trong cái đề thi 1 này là nó sẽ có, và trong cái phần đề thi 2 thì chúng ta cũng sẽ có. Thì đó là các bạn sẽ vừa là luyện tập vừa cũng là vừa để ôn tập, đúng không? Đó là ý thứ hai này. Thế còn trong các cái buổi thầy chữa bài tập ấy, thì thầy luôn luôn dành thời gian để chữa các cái bài, cái long question ấy, cái bài tập của chúng ta về cung cầu, về trong BP, đợt tới thầy sẽ chữa các cái phần này rất là kỹ, nên là nếu là hình thức thi tự luận thì các bạn cũng sẽ không bị bất ngờ về cái câu hỏi thi, nó chỉ xoay quanh các cái dạng problem set mà thầy đã gửi ra. Ok chưa?
Rồi ạ.
Rồi mời cả lớp nghỉ nhé.
Thầy ạ.
Thầy ạ.